With only 35 days until the election, a pair of Republicans want the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton to testify next week about the deadly attack on the United States consulate in Benghazi, Libya. It's the only congressional hearing on any matter scheduled between now and Election Day, November 6th. In their letter to the Secretary today, the House Oversight Committee Chairman Darrell Issa and the Utah Republican Jason Chaffetz revealed new information about the attack, and I'm quoting from the letter now. Multiple U.S. federal government officials have confirmed to the committee that prior to the September 11th attack, the U.S. mission in Libya had made repeated requests for increased security in Benghazi. The letter then continues. The mission in Libya, however, was denied these resources by officials in Washington. The House Democratic leader, Nancy Pelosi, is here in the Situation Room. Let's get to some of the news. Let's get your reaction right now to what Chairman Issa and Congressman Chaffetz are saying. What do you make of this?
Well, I think it's important to note that Congress does have a right to know, but the Secretary and the Department of State have to have the information. There is an investigation by the FBI as to what happened in Benghazi, and there also is an accountability review as to how, answering some of the questions that are asked. But how can you ask the Secretary to come before the information is known? Now, I thought it's also important to note that the Republican appropriation in Congress gave the administration $300 million less than it asked for the State Department, including funding for security.
So are you suggesting that there was a financial aspect to what happened in Benghazi, Libya, that the U.S. didn't have enough money to protect American diplomats?
No, what I'm saying is Congress has the right of oversight, but it also has the power of the purse. So as it looks to what the fundamentals are here, we have to know, and nobody's going to know by next week, but we have to have a full investigation and accountability for it. But we also have to look to ourselves in terms of that funding question, $300 million less than the administration asked for.
And we know that the State Department, the Secretary has asked the retired U.S. Ambassador Thomas Pickering to launch this full-scale investigation internally in the State Department. But you acknowledge that Congress has an oversight role to make sure that these are legitimate questions that these congressmen are asking.
But as you indicate, they have had no hearings on any subject. Today we had to have a rump hearing. Democrats only, unfortunately, Republicans would not participate on Medicare and how Medicare is affected by the Ryan Romney budget to sever the Medicare guarantee. They didn't want to participate in that. They don't want to call we're supposed to be in session this week, but they've canceled it rather than passing a middle-income tax cut, passing a jobs bill, passing the Violence Against Women Act, passing the farm bill, any of those things. But yet they have time to say, we want information when they know it's premature.
So are you saying this is political from their perspective?
One might suspect that.
That's what I hear you say.
One might suspect.
All right, let's talk a little bit about some other political stuff that's going on. A new Romney campaign ad. I'm going to play a little clip of it because you're prominently featured in this ad. Watch this.
Who will raise taxes on the middle class? Barack Obama and the liberals already have. To pay for government-run health care, you'll pay higher taxes and more for your medicine. And their plan includes $1 trillion in higher taxes, even on the middle class. Mitt Romney and common-sense conservatives will cut taxes on the middle class.
You see an ad like that, how does it make you feel?
It makes me feel sad for them that they have no fidelity to the truth. The fact is President Obama and the Democratic Congress were cutting taxes for the middle class from day one, 1 week and 1 day after the president's inaugural address. We passed a recovery package which had a tax cut for the middle class. Approximately 30% of that legislation was a tax cut for the middle class. These are the same Republicans who have held the middle income tax cut hostage to their giving tax cuts to the wealthiest people in our country. I've never seen a campaign, and I've seen a lot of them, where there has been such a lack of faithfulness to the truth.
I think what they're referring to is the middle class taxes going up as a result of the Affordable Care Act. There are all sorts of new taxes in there. The Supreme Court deemed them as taxes. They'll be run by the IRS, and the middle class will have to pay these new taxes to comply with what's called Obamacare.
Well, the fact is that what we're talking about is the well-being of the middle class, and the Affordable Care Act reduces cost to the consumer for care. It saves the taxpayer $100 billion over the first 10 years, $1 trillion over 20 years. So this is what they've said about the Affordable Care Act, and Medicare is another place where they I don't know how they can tell the American people something that simply is not true. What we did there was take over what would be increased payments from healthcare providers, use it to give increased benefits to seniors, and extend the life of Medicare by 10 years. And they are misrepresenting that as well.
The Supreme Court and others have deemed to be a tax, and it would affect primarily the middle class. So that's what I assume that's what this Romney ad is referring to.
I think you can assume that it's it's a misrepresentation.
Let's talk a little bit about Joe Biden for a minute. You heard the news today that I don't know what he was saying. I know what he was suggesting, but it certainly came across poorly when he said the middle class has been buried over the past 4 years. Did you hear that earlier today?
Well, I heard when I came in that I didn't see the context of what it was. But the fact is that if the Republicans had not stood in the way of President Obama's initiatives on job creation and tax cuts for the middle class would certainly be better off. It was interesting to see an article the other day that talked about the high end, the Forbes 400. And it said in 1 year that those in the Forbes, that list,
the wealthiest
Americans gained $200 billion more in wealth, while the middle class stagnated.
Yeah, the stock market, the Dow Jones has gone from 7,000 to 13,500. Yeah. So it's not surprising that they've made a lot of money. People have invested in these stocks over the past 4 years.
That was the point of the article, saying that capital gains differential is not necessarily about growth in the economy for everyone.
Here's what you've said repeatedly, that you think you could become the majority in the House of Representatives, the Democrats. Once again, the Cook Political Report, highly respected, they came out with this, and I'll read it. It's often noted House Democrats need to pick up 25 seats to win back the majority. But in actuality, as we've noted all cycle long, Democrats will likely need to pick up between 35 and 40 Republican-held seats because they are likely to lose a few of their own members. Do you agree with that analysis?
Well, we've said all along we have to net 25 seats. We're in a drive for 25 more seats. I don't think it's up to 40, but I think that we probably have to win more than 25 to net.
Can you net 25 seats?
Yes, I think we can.
Why do you think so? Most analysts don't think you can.
Well, because I'm out on the campaign trail. I see the enthusiasm of our candidates. They're absolutely great. Many of them self-recruited. They just came forward and said, not on my watch will we let what's happened, the Republicans are doing to our country, continue. We have a great leader in Steve Israel, the chairman of our committee, who's very analytical and very strong and scientific as to how we go forward. But it's mostly about the vision for our country.
And I know you believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that Paul Ryan being added to the Republican ticket has helped you in trying to gain seats. Is that right?
Mark your calendar. August 11th, the day he was chosen, gave a clarification to the issue of Medicare. This is a person who has been the destroyer of the Medicare guarantee.
He wants to save it, he says.
And wither on the vine. He wants it to wither on the vine, which is the language the Republicans use when they're not on TV. But here's the thing. The 6 times the do-nothing Republican Congress, which is refused to pass a jobs bill, or I've said some of the other bills earlier, has taken the time for 6 times to sever the Medicare guarantee. By naming Ryan, the spotlight moved to that. For 16 months, we had been saying, previous to then, we'd been saying to members, the 3 most important issues in the campaign in alphabetical order are Medicare, Medicare, Medicare. It's about our seniors. It's about their families. And now they want to take us to a time before Medicare existed by giving you a voucher to go shopping, which helps, gives choice to the insurers, diminishes your choice of health care professionals.
You'll have to thank him. If you become the speaker once again, you'll send him a little note thanking Paul Ryan for helping you. That's the way you believe it. All right, hold on for a moment, Leader Pelosi. We have much more to talk about. I want to take a quick break. Have to take a quick break. We have much more to discuss. We're back with the House Democratic Leader, Nancy Pelosi. Leader Pelosi, you were telling me the other day a really amazing story where people forget 4 years ago, almost exactly to the day, you got a call from the then Treasury Secretary, President Bush's Treasury Secretary, Hank Paulson. What did he say to you?
Well, it was actually the reverse. I called him because I was seeing what was happening with Lehman, Merrill, and then AIG that very day. It was September 18th, 4 years ago. And why that's important is because some people are going around saying, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? Well, here's where we were 4 years ago. I call Hank Paul, the secretary, what's going on, how can we be helpful, can you come to my office tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock? The secretary says, tomorrow morning will be too late. Tomorrow morning will be too late. Then why am I calling you? Why aren't you calling me? I said I will call would call the chairman, Bernanke, and ask him to come to our office at 5 o'clock in the afternoon to brief the leadership on what was going on in the markets. And so
you were then the Speaker of the House.
I was then the Speaker. And so I said, why am I calling you? And the response, the impression I received was that the White House did not want Congress to know. They were just trying to wait it out.
To know what?
To know the following. So then they come that evening. Now we had the House and Senate, Democrats and Republicans, in the Speaker's office, and Secretary Bernanke describes a disaster, a meltdown of our financial situation in our country of horrible magnitude. So I turn to the chairman, Bernanke, and say, what do you think of this, Mr. Chairman? And this is the point. The chairman says, if we do not act immediately, we will not have an economy by Monday.
This is Ben Bernanke, the chairman of the Federal Reserve. And this is a Friday, you're saying?
Thursday night.
This is a Thursday night. And he's saying that if you didn't take emergency action,
we would not have an economy by Monday. So when they want to ask,
what does that mean? We would not have an economy by Monday.
Well, it's a horrible prospect. It means everything would disintegrate in terms of financial transactions and the rest. So we went out and I said, time is of the essence. Regardless of the fact that there was a presidential election 7 weeks away, this was happened on the president's watch. He was suggesting a solution. I said, we must work together in a bipartisan way to get this done. But the fact is that they knew they were withholding the information from Congress because they were hoping to get to the election, in my view. But the fact is that 4 years ago, the end of September, if we didn't act immediately, we would not have an economy by Monday. That would have been a disaster for our country. So while we want to do more to help individual families, and the Republicans have obstructed that in the last 2 years, the fact is we would not have had an economy on the path that the Bush administration and the Republicans had.
And I know you acted, the Federal Reserve acted, and the economy exists today, but you're trying to give that perspective where the country was exactly 4 years ago as opposed to right now.
I wouldn't have brought it up, except they brought up, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? We certainly are very much better off now than we were 4 years ago, but we'd be even better off if the Republicans had worked with the president in a cooperative way and not an obstructionist way to create more jobs.
Let's see what happens over the next 5 weeks. Thanks very much, Leader Pelosi, for coming in.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Congratulations on your new dignity.
No, thank you very much. Nancy Pelosi says Democrats can take back the House. So what do our own political experts think about that? Stand by. Our strategy session is coming up next.